Alright, so if you're into the flashlight hobby at all, then there's no doubt that you have heard of this particular light. This is the Thrunite TN12. And this is the light that, like it or not, is pretty much the most popular high-end light on the market right now. And as far as I'm concerned, this is basically the benchmark. This is what all other lights are compared to. More or less, I mean, in their respective categories. This light I consider to be somewhat of an EDC general purpose type light. But as you can see, I myself like this light so much that I actually bought two of these. Although, I mostly bought two because I lost one of them, because this is my EDC light, even though it is, some people find it a bit large, but it is my EDC. And I lost it, and I just loved the light so much that I had to get another one to replace it. So, that's why I have two boxes. I only actually have one light here, though, so I'm not going to need this. So this is the pretty typical Thrunite packaging. It's just a plain brown box with the title of the light on top, a QR code, a little bit of information, a picture of the light, all that good stuff. And this particular one, as you can see, comes secured with this clear rubber band. Now this box is actually quite packed with stuff. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff in there. So the first thing you're greeted by is this instruction manual that is stuck in the lid. And this has information about the light in about 6 different languages. And it tells you pretty much everything you need to know. The ANSI FL1. Let's see, this is not English. Okay, so here you go. Here are all the specifications of the light. Operation, a couple of warnings. They actually tell you not to point this light in anybody's face because it can cause permanent eye damage, so that's fun. Here's a little Thrunite warranty card. That's a lot. And then as you can see, the light itself comes packaged very neatly inside this foam, inside this rather pointless plastic bag, which I'll set aside for a second. And then underneath, you have a holster, spare O-rings, and a Tailcap boot, pocket clip, lanyard, and a lovely candy. Now, I'm going to get to these accessories in a bit. And I'm just going to clear this off. I don't know where that went. Alright, so as you probably know, this is a single 18650 EDC style light, and at this point a lot of people don't really consider this an EDC light because it is rather large. But this is probably, well, actually definitely the most well-known light in this particular size category and type. So this is the holster the light comes with. As you can see, it's a basic Velcro nylon holster with elastic here, which a lot of people don't like because they say it'll wear out over time, which I can see, but I like it because it holds the light very securely in there. And then on the back, it has a large plastic D-ring and just a single attached loop, which is a little bit unusual because usually Thrunite has some sort of Velcro system back here, but it's not a big deal. And then the light will fit in here with the pocket clip. Now the pocket clip is a matte black, simple stainless steel pocket clip, and this pops on and off to the back really easily. And it does its job. I mean, it helps the light not roll quite as easily. That's quite nice. And it fits in the pocket, but as you can see, it is a fairly high ride clip. And I don't think it's very comfortable in the hand, especially with these little bits back here kind of poking you when you hold it. So I'm not a huge fan of it, but if you want a pocket clip, here you go. And a lot of people really like this matte black for some reason. And it also comes with this lanyard. Now Thrunite's lanyards seem to be praised a lot, and I can see why. I mean, this is a really nice material. It feels really good in the hand, and it's nice and thick, and I like it. The only problem is the attachment point kind of sucks a lot. Now, I'll talk more about this bit later on in the review, but as you can see, just it doesn't work very well. This is... I did not use this lanyard very much at all, honestly, and it just did not take very much abuse. So if your life depends on your flashlight lanyard not breaking, then you're probably going to die, I'm afraid to say. And then, of course, you get these. So, alright, let's clear all of this off the desk. So that's everything the light comes with. Pretty basic. Actually, some pretty nice accessories. But that is not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about this light. Now, this particular light is the Thrunite TN12 2016 XPL High V6. So what that means is this is the 2016 model of the TN12. In the original 2014 model, the only difference was it had a rubber side switch, and the head was actually slightly thinner. So when the new 2016 model came out, they replaced the rubber side switch with this metal one. They made it slightly thicker and more durable up here at the front. Supposedly they centered the LED a little bit better, but I don't know that the original TN12 ever had problems with that. And then this is the newest version of the TN12, the TN12 2016 with the XPL High V6. This model actually did come out in 2016. And the only difference between this and the last version of the TN12 2016 is simply the LED. This LED has slightly better performance, slightly longer run times. And I assume they also revised the driver inside the head just a little bit, but that would be a very minor difference. And on, Thrunite's advertising for this light, they say that they centered the LED a little bit better again. I don't know if it's the same advertising sheet from the original 2016 model and they just didn't remove it, or if this is actually even better centered than the last version of the light. Again, I really don't think it matters. It's whatever. Glad it's a well-centered LED. Alright. So, this light, thankfully, retails for the exact same price that the original 2016 retailed, which is $49. You can only buy it from Amazon or from Thrunite, which I think is a really good price. I'm going to talk about price a little bit later in the review, but if you don't already know, now you know. Okay. So as you can see, as I hope you can see, so the lighting and the camera angle might be a bit off. Just bear with me. Hopefully you actually watch this whole video. As you can see, the light is about just under 5.5 inches long, and the head has a diameter of about 0.8 inches. It's about 14 centimeters long, and about 2 centimeters wide, actually, on the head there. Quite lightweight, actually. Even with the battery, this is a pretty light flashlight, at least as far as all-metal aluminum flashlights go. Okay, so, the build. This flashlight is made entirely out of Type 3 hard anodized aircraft-grade aluminum. And as you can see, the anodizing is actually not that thick. I'm really not a huge fan of the anodizing on this light. You can tell it's not very thick because of how glossy it is. Usually the thicker the anodizing, the more matte the finish of the light is. And so it's glossy, which I just don't think looks as good. And that also makes it a little bit slipperier a little bit more slippery in the hand. And also the coating is slightly less durable, but it's a very minor difference. And as you can see, as I hope you can see, this coating is actually quite tough. This light has seen quite a bit of abuse, so it's held up pretty well. Let's just start from the back end. So this is only my second video, but even so, for those of you who don't know, I intend to be very thorough when I review these lights, so it's probably going to take me forever to get from this point of the light to this point. But here we go. Alright, sorry, I just changed my lighting and my exposure a little bit, make this a little bit easier to see. Okay, so on the back, you have this large, I think this is a standard 14mm size. Actually, hold on just a second. 12mm size. So a large, roughly 12mm size rubber boot cap on this forward clicky switch. Now, of course, being a forward clicky switch, this does have access to momentary on. However, this particular switch does not have very much travel, and so it's also a bit mushier than some other lights I've used. It's not bad, but I've used better. So it's actually a bit more than halfway in order to get to momentary. So there's not a whole lot of space there where momentary activates, so it's you kind of have to press hard on it, but you can't press too hard, and it's not that comfortable for momentary. So it's not the best use of it there, but this is a bit of a smaller, flatter button, so that's one trade-off, I guess. I've never heard of this button failing, so it's not a big problem. You can see it is inside, or it is surrounded by these two sort of raised gosh, what are these stupid things called? I don't know. These two little raised bits here. Focus. These two little raised bits here. This will allow the light to tail stand, and it tail stands pretty stably. However, as you can see, each one has a single large hole for the lanyard to be inserted. And this is something that bothers me quite a bit, actually, because when you put the lanyard in there, even though it is quite thin, it makes it so that the light is no longer able to tail stand, or at least it tail stands very unstably, which is quite a bummer. And they could easily remedy that by just splitting this hole here by adding, another little piece of metal, making this two holes on each of these, which I think would be a much better system, and I just don't know why they wouldn't do that. I can't imagine that it's that much more expensive to manufacture. Now, let's see if I can zoom in a bit here. As you can see, these holes are very nicely machined. There's no sharp edges in there. So the fact that the lanyard frayed and broke so easily was more just due to the fact that the lanyard wasn't that good than, being cut up by these edges. Because as you can see, they're not actually sharp. At least, I hope you can see that. Moving down the barrel, there's a bit of a drop here. Flat area, this is where the pocket clip goes. Some knurling here. Another raised area. Got an anti-roll ring here. Then we have the secondary mode switch. Now as you can see, there's kind of like a flat area machined out here, and this switch sticks out quite a lot more than actually any of their current lights that have that really flat button with the little light in them. This one sticks out quite a bit more, also more than the old rubber switch. This button is made out of stainless steel, as is that little ring surrounding it. And this is just a simple digital button. This is just for operation when the light is already on. And it is really loose. Let's see. If you can hear that, that's actually the button rattling around. It's really loose. And as you can see, this is a nice bit of machine work they've done on it. As you can see, the original button was actually smooth, but they've sort of matted it a little bit, so it's a little more grippier on your thumb. It's still kind of slippery, especially if you have nasty, sweaty hands like I do. But it's better than just being a slick metal surface. And while it moves around a bit, but the actual button depresses quite nicely, nice and loud. You can hear that. And there is a little bit of rubber under here that helps the waterproofness of this light. On the other side here, you can see the Thrunite, name of the light TN12 2016, serial number. These are nicely engraved. There are 3 cooling fins here. This is a heatsink. And then a section here where it looks like this is another section that screws off. And I believe it is, however, it's just been basically Loctited on there. So unless you put a ton of pressure on it, you're not going to get this off. Then there are some extra rings machined in here. Maybe they help with cooling. I'm really not sure. They seem to just be aesthetic to me. And then the light actually does taper down just a little bit. This is where they added that extra thickness with the upgrade from the old model. It does taper down a little bit. you can see we have this really nicely beveled edge around here. So it comes up, it's beveled off, then it's flat, and then it goes down again. Then you see the exposed O-ring. This is what water seals, and so it seals the lens, or it helps to seal the head of the light from water, dust, and also adds a little bit of extra shock absorption. You can see the mineral crystal glass. This is hardened mineral crystal with dual anti-reflective coating. Now, because of the way anti-reflective coating works, it looks like it's absolutely not coated. This is just because it's a really extreme angle. This is just how it works. It doesn't matter how well coated something is. At a certain angle, it's going to reflect light normally. However, if this was reflecting light that was coming head on, it would be basically... actually, let me get... Hopefully you can see that. I don't know if it's picking up the color really well, but this is a really nice reflective coating. Not as good. I may not have shown it very well in the video, I'm sorry, but not as good as this light's reflective coating. This light definitely has a better coating, but I'm not revealing this one. So anyway, if you don't know, the nature of anti-reflective coating is that it can only stop reflections from it, or it's only so effective depending on the angle of the light hitting it. Otherwise, it would just be opaque. Anyway, the point that I was trying to get to before I took forever to get to it, the first light that I had did not have a well-coated lens. It was, I'm not even sure if it was coated. It was pretty bad. It was just a light bluish tint, reflected quite a bit of light. And from all the videos and photos that I've seen of both of the older models, the 2016 version and the earlier 2014 version, the lens was like that. And keep in mind, the first light I had was the exact same light as this. And I did mention on one of Thrunite's forums that it would be really nice if they put the anti-reflective coating on the lens in the TN12. That was before I bought this light. A couple months later, I ended up buying this light again, and it did have that coating. So I don't know if I actually made any difference in that. So I like to think that I helped influence Thrunite to add that, though. So it's just good to know this light, or at least mine does, now have that coating. So if you're like hardcore about your flashlight optics, this is now a worthy light. Anyway, in there you can see it has a smooth aluminum reflector, nicely machined, and it goes about to this section right here. It's actually fairly deep. And then you have that Create XPL High version 6. This is a neutral white, and you can see it has a nice white surround. And Thrunite says it's pretty much perfectly centered. I'll take their word for it. I don't know that it's that hard to center a flashlight LED, but... And then one thing about the optical, the heads on Thrunite lights, they're infamously pretty dirty. They don't seem to assemble these in very clean facilities, so yeah, there's a bit of dust in there, and that is kind of disappointing, but it seems to have gotten better. It's not as bad as it was in previous lights, especially... Maybe it's just because it's so small, but especially in some of their older, bigger lights, like some of the early TN30 series, those had a lot of dust in them. This one only has one bit of dust that I can actually see. And I don't know if you can see it right now. When I turn the light on, it'll be a lot more obvious. Wow. So anyways, this light, as you can see, has two knurled sections, and this knurling is really precise. In real life, it's hard to describe, but it actually looks really good. However, it's not very grippy, so it helps, but it's not like... It does minimal help, honestly. And the other problem with this light that bugs me a lot is that it's not aligned at all. I mean, you can see it would... You see how this, I'm just going to call it fin. You see how this is like just misaligned? It should look like this. This would be the most comfortable in the hand, because then you could press the button and your pinky would be perfectly aligned, all that good stuff, but it's not. It's misaligned, and that is just obnoxious. I'm just OCD, that's why that bothers me, but still, these things, when you're paying this much for a flashlight, and it's not a lot, but when you are paying this much, and when Thrunite does such a good job machining these, you kind of wonder why they didn't bother to like machine these so they actually aligned properly. I don't know. And it's the same with this. You can see this has 4 lines and they're not aligned with anything. They're just kind of random. So really, this is what it should look like. However, you can't, if that bothers you that much, you can't just unscrew it, because as I assemble this light, disassemble, as you can see, all the threads on this light are completely anodized. Now these are nice thick square cut threads, fully anodized, and they're actually lubed out of the box, so that's quite nice. This battery tube is pretty thin. As you can see, it's quite thin. Thinner than most of the competitors on the market for a single 18650 light, but it is just a metal tube. I don't think this will affect durability significantly. For those of you wondering, this will screw in backwards. It's just a metal tube. The inside of the tube is also anodized very nicely. There's no imperfections that I can see on the inside of this battery tube. Dual springs. There's a spring in the cap, spring in the head. This offers better shock protection for the light, and both springs are fully gold plated. This is really nice. This allows for better current flow and technically higher performance. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it is considered of them to do. And then what else? So these threads, they're square cut, they're nice and thick, they're lubed. However, the tolerances are not very tight. As you can see, they shake quite a bit, and they feel pretty smooth when you're screwing the pieces together, but that's probably just because they're anodized and lubed. The tolerances here are just not very tight, unfortunately. As you can see, so that's kind of disappointing. It doesn't really make a difference as far as waterproofness goes, because the waterproofness is really down to these O-rings anyway, and these are actually quite thick O-rings, and once the cap of the head hits these, it smooths on. It screws on very securely, very smoothly. Okay, so that's it for the build of the light. At least I think it is. As far as the way, the light feels in the hand, it's pretty lightweight. I think it feels quite nice, actually. It is a bit strange for operation to have buttons on opposite ends of the light, here on the back, here up at the front. But I find that if you want to hold it like this, you can turn on and off or use momentary with your thumb while switching the modes with your pinky, if you have to switch the modes. But I'm sure most users would just turn this light on and then hold it like this, and if they need to change the modes, they'll be able to do that. Alright, now for lighting performance. I'm going to have to clean that up, as usual. Now, the battery that I prefer to use in this light is the relatively new LG MJ1. I got this from IMR Batteries, that's why it has this ugly sticker. This is a really nice battery. It's 3,500 milliamp hours. It has a maximum output of 10 amps. This is, I believe this is an INR, not an IMR or NCR like the Panasonics. In this particular light, and in most single 18650 lights, I prefer using unprotected batteries because technically they have better reliability and better performance. I mean, it's like not going to make a real effective difference, but it's just on a technical level, these are superior because this light already has several protection circuits in it, including a reverse polarity protection circuit. And this is electronic, not physical, which is always better in my opinion. And then with this battery, I do get an extra 100 milliamp hours, which is not a lot, but if you're using it on Firefly mode exclusively, that might give you a few extra days, if not weeks. So the UI on this light is pretty straightforward. Maybe not. Maybe it's just kidding. It's difficult. So the UI on this light is pretty straightforward. You just press this on the back to turn it on and off. Press it slightly to go into momentary. As you can see, this light fades in and out really nicely. This is actually a lot more pronounced on the camera than it is in real life. This is just something I like to see in lights. It makes me happy. So when the light is on, you press the side button to go higher. It cycles between several different brightness modes. I'll get to those in a second. And then when it is on, press and hold and you'll go into strobe. And this is just a constant 13 hertz strobe. I think this runs at 800 lumens. When it is off, this button does nothing. So the only way to access strobe is from on, making it less useful, especially because it is a constant rate. But this is not a tactical light. And of course, the light does have mode memory. So if you turn it to a specific level, turn it off, turn it back on, it'll remain at that level. This is to be expected, of course, from like every light. If it doesn't have that, then we have a problem. And then just to show you that fading, yeah, that makes me happy. As far as the modes of this light, this is Firefly mode. This is 0.4 lumens. This will last for 74 days, so literally over 2 months straight. Now, how useful is that? I don't know, but this mode is actually, I have found that Firefly mode is actually quite useful when you're actually in like the pitch black when you're camping or it's in the middle of the night or whatever. This is actually a usable amount of light, and it's nice to know that it basically doesn't affect your battery life at all. I don't want to burn this camera sensor. The next mode here is 18 lumens. This will last for roughly 5.5 days. Very nice, just general purpose mode. This is like probably the most realistically usable brightness level on this light. And the fact that it lasts for 5.5 days is just awesome because this is quite nice. Medium, this is, I think this is 180 lumens. And this will run for 11 hours. And this is a lot of light. Like, this really is a lot of light. And the fact that it runs for 11 hours is really awesome, actually. This is probably my favorite mode on this light, just because it's a really good balance between long runtime and high output. The next step up is, sorry, I just don't want to freak out my camera. The next step up is high. This is 400 and, hold on a second. 435 lumens. This will run for 4.2 hours. Next step up, turbo, 1100 lumens. This will run for 95 minutes. And then no one actually cares how long strobe will run. So really, really good mode spacing on this light. The only issue I have with the mode spacing is just the simple fact that, you know, by the very nature of the way light works, 400, okay, now, being a single-celled light, this does not have a circuit booster. So this is a direct drive light, meaning that as the battery dies, the light output will decrease. Now, if you've read Flashline's reviews, flashline.blogspot.com, I highly recommend going there. I think there's a virus on that site, but he does really great reviews. And he does long-term measurements of the lights and their outputs. And the original TN12 2014, which has very similar performance to this. The performance didn't change from the 2014 to the 2016. And then this upgrade only added like 50 lumens and a few minutes on turbo. So it's not the difference is going to be minimal. Anyways, on that flashlight, he found that it took about 30 minutes for turbo, which then was 1050. So this is literally only 50 extra lumens than that. It took about 30 minutes for it to drop to 80%. So this turbo 1100 lumens will drop to about 900 within 30 minutes, which is quite good, actually. You really can't tell the difference between 900 and 1100, even when you put them side by side. So 30 minutes of effectively the same brightness is quite good, actually. It's one of the best in its class. And I don't remember any of the other measurements, but from what I found experimenting with this light and using really cheap ultrafire batteries, they claim they have 3,000 milliamp hour capacity. I measured them at 400 milliamp hours, so they really suck. From what I noticed, this light has a very interesting behavior, and I don't really ever test my lights like this, just this one, because basically, as the battery died, the lower levels stayed at the same. The Firefly, low, medium, high modes, they basically stayed at the same level, and the highest mode would basically drop until it hit basically the same output as the next lowest level, and then those two would be the same, and then they would slowly drop until they hit the output of the next lowest level, and so on and so forth. But the levels that were lower than that remained the same output until, of course, the battery drained enough that they also dropped. But basically, what that means is it has a behavior where it's sort of like a semi-boosted circuit. It's really interesting. And again, I haven't done enough testing to say whether or not most lights do this. I'm going to assume they do, at least now. But for those of you who haven't tried this, now you know that while it is a direct drive circuit, it still really does a good job at maximizing your runtimes and your outputs. So that is really good. And then, of course, with this particular battery, I'm getting a bit more runtime, just a bit. What to talk about next? So the runtimes on this are really good. One thing that is not so great, however, is the heat. This light gets very hot very quickly. In fact, on turbo, I mean, you can easily feel the heat coming off of this. It's quite hot. And you can legitimately pop a balloon with this thing. It really is that hot. It's that bright. It's very impressive, actually. However, that means that the light itself will heat up quite quickly. This heatsink does really very little. It's so small, and it's just aluminum. It heats up very quickly. And I'd say on turbo, Thrunite recommends that you don't run it any longer than 10 minutes at a time or you'll damage the LED. Honestly, I would say you shouldn't run it on turbo any longer than like 4 or 5 minutes. It just gets so hot. It might even be uncomfortable to run it any longer than that. Which isn't a problem because I don't really know anybody who uses a constant 1100 lumens all the time that they're using their light. This light, even on all the modes, turbo, strobe, this light is absolutely silent, which is good. This is to be expected from any high-end light now. Basically means that it is well constructed and it's not wasting any energy. So as you know, this light has the XPL High V6, and this is the neutral white version. Now, so far as I'm aware, they did not change the optics of this light in any way from the previous version. And because this is a different LED, as you can see, it means it's a little odd. It's not quite optimized the way it should be. So the beam pattern is not going to be quite as smooth. However, it makes up for it with the longer run times, and slightly longer throw distances. On maximum, this is supposed to throw, I think, like 200. They claim 226 meters, and it has a peak beam intensity of 12,800 candela. So that's pretty good for such a small light. I mean, it's no, Van Gogh mini super thrower, but it's pretty good. It's definitely better than the older versions of the light. As you can see, this does have some interesting, I don't know what to call it, I guess, artifacts that you can see just looking into the head of the light. The way it plays with the light is quite interesting. This is not something that you see on most lights, actually. It's just because you have this interesting LED shape with this particular reflector. Cameras really don't do a very good job of picking up what a flashlight actually looks like in real life, so I'm not going to bother with night shots, at least not for now. If people say I should, then I will. Again, this is only the second review I filmed. But for now, I'm not intending to do any night shots, simply because this light it doesn't look the same in real life as it does on camera. And even this tint, this is a neutral white, it just doesn't look like this in real life. On camera, it looks, I don't even know, it's like green and blue, and then the camera's white balance is trying to adjust for it, and it not so much. So as you can see, this is on pretty low exposure. This is a pretty great, actually, everyday use, general purpose beam profile. Nice hot spot in the center. Much less color variance in real life than you see on the camera. On the camera, there's like a brownish color here and it's green. In real life, this is a nice even color. The corona around here has a bit of a four-sided clover shape, I guess, just because of the shape of the LED in this reflector. It's not bad by any means, but it's not as perfectly smooth as, well, it's not perfectly smooth. And then you have the spill, which is just a really nice even color. It's a tad more purple on the edges of the spill, and then the hot spot is just a tad more green than the rest of the beam. It's really quite exaggerated on camera, but it's not a perfect homogeneous beam as far as color goes, which is kind of a shame, but even so, this tint is actually really nice. This is this was actually the first neutral white flashlight that I got, and it just looks so much better than cool white. It really does look great at night, very realistic. And the beam profile on this is just great. You can see it has a nice wide spread, but it still has a good amount of distance. And then as far as the periphery of the beam goes, actually not that much periphery. It is definitely purple in color, but it's not that bad. It's not wasting a whole lot of light. And then this little bit here is just from the damage that I've done to the bezel of this light. So overall, the optical performance of this light is quite good. I quite like it. It's a really great general purpose beam pattern. It has a great color. It still has good throw, actually. Partially just because it has such a high output. But all around, it's just great. It's not perfectly smooth. In fact, it's not even as smooth as the last version of the TN12, again, just because of the LED that they're using. But I think the trade-off is worth it. I'm not, like, super crazy about having the most perfectly smooth beam pattern ever. But if you are, this probably isn't the light for you, unless perhaps you mod it, put a different LED in there. But it is good. So what are my thoughts on the light? What do I like about it? What do I not like about it? Well, this is probably actually going to be the longest part of the video. What do I like about this light? It's small. A lot of people will say this is too big for EDC. I disagree. I EDC this everywhere, like literally everywhere. I am less concerned about size than other people, though, so you can take that with a grain of salt. But I think this makes a fantastic EDC, and I don't even use the pocket clip. I just slip it right into my pocket. Granted, I did lose the first one, but I've had this one for about 6 months now, and I have not lost it, and I've taken it literally everywhere. without a pocket clip, because I don't like to pocket clip. So it makes a great EDC. The interface, very nice and simple, really good. The build quality, I mean, some of the finer, littler design choices are kind of questionable. Obviously, they weren't concerned with making like a super refined light or anything. But as far as just like the build quality, the sturdiness, the reliability, it's of course exceptional. Everyone knows that these lights are basically indestructible, and I can confirm that. Both of these lights that I have owned, this one and the previous one, have received a lot of abuse. I have not been careful with these lights, and they have not had any problems. The only thing I would like to point out is, one, no steel bezel up here, which I don't think is necessary, especially not a crenulated bezel on this type of light. But if that concerns you, there is not a steel bezel. This is just the same piece of aluminum that makes up the rest of the head, and then there's the O-ring, and then it goes into the O-ring and the lens. And while this is waterproof to IPX8, when you get it wet, you'll notice that there's quite a bit of water underneath this button. Don't be concerned, that's not actually inside the light, it's just underneath this metal part of the button, but it has to get under the rubber part to get into the light. So it's probably honestly the biggest weak point of the light as far as waterproofness goes, but it's not a problem. The water will remain in there for a little bit and it'll dry out. It's concerning the first time, but trust me, it's not a major weak point of the light. It's very waterproof. And of course, I've dropped this light many times. The other one much more than this one. This one actually, I haven't dropped all that much, honestly. I've dropped it on the asphalt a few times, the concrete like one. This light has not been abused as badly as the last one was. I've actually taken relatively good care of this one. But yeah, it's a Thrunite. It's durable. It's reliable. Everyone knows that. I like the output. The output is really good. It's very, very high. I like the runtimes. The runtimes are actually, in my opinion, really good. This is just a very usable flashlight, and I have literally gone like 2 months, including camping trips, without charging this light. And when I put the battery in my charger, it was still at like 50% effective charge, which is really good. And I use this light on a semi-regular basis. Most of the time I'm just messing around with it because I think it's cool, because I'm that kind of person. I don't actually need to use it most of the time that I am using it, but it does get used pretty frequently on higher modes too. Not constant. I usually briefly just sort of, turn it up, take a quick look around, and then put it back down. This is how I use all my lights, but the runtime is really good. It just lasts a really long time. The value, of course, I'm going to talk a bit more about comparisons later, but the value I think is really good. For $50, you're getting a lot for your money. That's part of what makes this light what it is, really, is the price. So the output, so the durability, the output, the optical performance is still really good. I mean, compared to just flashlights that most people use, this is a lot better. Higher output, long run times. I think I already said output. What do I not like? I don't like that these pieces don't align. That bothers me so much, honestly. I wish the anodizing was thicker. It's a minor thing that doesn't make much of a difference in real practical use. I kind of wish that this button was metal for no particular reason. I don't see why not. This lanyard system, they really ought to split this into 2 holes. I actually don't have a problem with the knurling. It fits in my hand just fine. I've never had it slip out of my hand. So there's not really much I dislike about this light. They could have optimized the reflector and the lens a little bit better, but other than that, there's no major thing that I dislike about this light. So let's talk about value and comparisons. This is where it gets interesting. As you know, as I'm sure you know, all the manufacturers have been making USB rechargeable lights that use micro USB charging ports directly in the light, which I think is a great idea because you can just charge your flashlight anywhere. You don't need to take the battery out, pop it into this big old charger that you probably don't have with you, and it's just really a nice feature. However, the problem is it leads to a larger size light, a more expensive light, a larger, more expensive light, and a more internally complex light. All of that effectively adds up to a light that is ultimately less durable, less reliable, and again, slightly bigger. That's a minor thing. It's probably better for EDC because it has a charging port, but still, that is there to consider. And I intend to get the new Tactical A1S and do a comparison between these two lights, as well as the Neutron 2C, of course. I don't really care for USB rechargeable lights. I think this one is great. I have multiple lights, so the charging thing is not a problem for me. I ended up spending, when I bought this light, I bought it alongside an X-Star charger, so I ended up spending like $70, $80 on this light. Whereas you could buy the TC12 version 2 or the Neutron 2C for $70. It includes a battery, which you have to buy separately, and it includes a charger. However, those lights are not as durable, or at least the TC12 is not. And the Neutron, so far as I'm aware, is actually quite durable, but I don't like the interface quite as much as this one. I really want to get that light and review it, but there are still advantages to this light. However, comparing this to the new Tactical A1S, I don't have that light. I plan to get it. I think that light is brilliant. But this is still the premium version of that light. This is still slightly more durable, slightly just higher quality. I don't know how to explain it. It has better optics, better anodizing. It's been around longer, so it has more. It's more tried and true, I guess. And it does have a better warranty than the Tactical, for sure. As far as that battery goes, I don't want to get too much into this because I want to talk about that in a review of that light. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I would prefer, since I have a dedicated battery charger, I would just use that. And so there's really no reason for me to own that light other than just reviewing it. But it is $30, and this is $50, and it does not include a battery or a charger. So there's that to consider. Now, comparing this to some other cheap alternatives, off the top of my head, like the Thorfire VG25, this is just better. The Thorfire suffers from PWM, stuff like that. It's just not as good. It's a great option. It's like $25, but this is still the better light. And I'm sure there are other, like convoys and stuff that are similar. Higher end lights, you have the Nightcore P12, the Phoenix P35. The Phoenix has some nice features. I think it's too expensive. The Nightcore, I don't have like any of these lights because I don't want to buy them because they're too similar to this one. But those lights are all quite similar, and honestly, you could probably interchange them. I think this one is still better just because it's cheaper, and it's, in my opinion, just as good. I think you can get the Nightcore for the same price as this, but that doesn't have the metal button, and Nightcore does not have quite as good QC as Thrunite does, or warranty, I think. But anyways, that's enough for a comparison. I might get some other single 18650 lights, round those together, compare them. The reason I'm reviewing this light first, or second, actually, I reviewed the TN11S first, but other than that, the reason I'm reviewing this one first is because, like I said, this is the benchmark flashlight. This is the light all the other lights should be judged against, in my opinion. This is the light that made Thrunite popular. Every reviewer had it. Every reviewer still reviews it. Everybody who owns nice flashlights has one of these because they're just that good. I mean, they're a bit behind now, perhaps, but it's just the benchmark. That's what it is. And I wanted to review it because I have a lot of experience with this light, and I figured it'd be easy to review this one first. And who knows, it might generate some traffic to my channel. So overall, that was probably kind of long-winded and boring, but overall, what do I think of this light? I think it's great. I think for the price, you can't go wrong. Nowadays, with USB rechargeable lights and cheaper lights, if you buy this one, you're going to need to buy batteries and chargers. So this is probably something I recommend more for people who are looking to get into nicer flashlights. More so than, people who just want one flashlight and that's it, in which case, probably buy the TC12 or the A1S. But this is just a great flashlight. There's really nothing bad about it. There's nothing that sticks out to me as something Thrunite really needs to change. It's just a great light overall. And for the price, I still don't think you can beat it, honestly. I would like Thrunite to release an updated version with better, everything, of course, but this is still a really good light, and would probably cost Thrunite a lot of money to top this without it being a lot more expensive, honestly. So that's it. That's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed. I'm impressed if you actually watched the whole thing, because it's probably quite boring. If you have any suggestions, any constructive criticism, I guess, or just any hateful criticism, I guess, too, post that in the comments. Share this video with all of your friends that would be interested in this. I doubt you have very many friends who are interested in this kind of thing. Most people don't. Most people think this is stupid. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll post a link to this in the description. I'm not affiliated with Thrunite yet. Hopefully I will be. I'm not. So if you purchase that, I won't get any money, so go me. Alright, thank you for watching, and goodbye.